The file was not supposed to be on my desk. I remember that much. One minute I was organizing schedules for Sebastian Vaughn, the most powerful man in the city, and the next I was staring at a confidential folder filled with names, dates, and secret payments. My stomach dropped when I recognized the first name. It belonged to someone Sebastian trusted like family. I closed the file immediately, but it was already too late. The next morning, my office felt wrong. A drawer was slightly open. Papers had been moved. Someone had searched my desk. Then I found the flowers. White roses. No card. Just a single note hidden between the stems. Forget what you saw. My hand started shaking. That night, Sebastian called me into his private office. The city lights glowed behind him as he stood by the window. For the first time since I started working for him, he looked worried. He asked me one question. Had I opened the file? When I nodded, he closed his eyes for a moment. Then he told me the truth. Someone inside his organization had been betraying him for years. The file was evidence he had been secretly collecting. I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. Days later, I discovered an old recording hidden inside a locked cabinet. The voice on it belonged to the one person nobody suspected. The person Sebastian trusted most. The person everyone believed was loyal. Suddenly every warning made sense. Every strange look. Every missing document. Every lie. I realized knowing the truth came with a price. Then my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. There was only one sentence. If Sebastian hears the recording, everything ends tonight. And attached beneath it was a photograph proving the sender was already inside the building. The moment you discover a secret, the secret begins watching you back. I did not know why that sentence suddenly appeared in my mind that Monday morning. At the time, I thought it was nothing more than a strange thought. Looking back now, it felt like a warning. My name is Olivia Carter, and for 3 years I worked as the personal secretary of Sebastian Vaughn. Most people only knew him as a wealthy businessman. They saw the skyscrapers, the luxury cars, the charitable donations, and the endless headlines about his success. Very few people ever saw the world behind those headlines. Even fewer survived long enough to understand it. My office occupied the 27th floor of Vaughn Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Every morning the sunlight painted golden reflections across the glass buildings below. It should have felt inspiring. Instead, that morning felt different. Quiet. Too quiet. Sebastian had already left for a private meeting before sunrise. His schedule showed nothing unusual. 3 meetings. 2 conference calls. A dinner reservation. Everything appeared normal. That was exactly why I noticed the file. It sat alone on my desk. A black folder with no label. No department stamp. No routing information. Nothing. I stared at it for several seconds. Every document entering my office followed strict procedures. This one had not. Curiosity tugged at me. Professional instinct told me to ignore it. Curiosity won. I opened the folder. The first page contained a list of dates. The second page contained bank transfers. The third page changed everything. Names. Familiar names. Senior advisors. Trusted associates. People who had worked beside Sebastian for years. My eyes moved slowly down the page until one name stopped me cold. Daniel Mercer. I nearly dropped the folder. Daniel was not simply another executive. He was Sebastian's closest advisor. The man everyone trusted. The man who practically lived inside Vaughn Tower. Yet his name appeared repeatedly beside transactions that made no sense. Secret meetings. Offshore accounts. Private communications. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. My pulse accelerated. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I quickly closed the folder and glanced toward the office door. Empty hallway. Silent reception area. No one watching. At least that was what I believed. A few minutes later, I locked the folder inside my desk and tried returning to work. It was impossible. Every email blurred together. Every phone call sounded distant. My mind kept returning to those pages. Around noon, I walked toward the executive conference room carrying documents for a scheduled meeting. As I passed the glass walls, I saw Daniel Mercer speaking with several board members. He smiled confidently. Everyone smiled back. He looked completely normal. Completely trustworthy. Yet the image from the file refused to leave my head. Then something unexpected happened. Daniel turned his head. Our eyes met through the glass. The smile vanished for less than a second. Barely noticeable. But I saw it. A flicker of concern. Almost as if he knew exactly what I had seen. Almost as if he knew the file had reached my desk. And in that moment, for the first time, I realized I might already be part of a story much larger than myself. Some people say instinct is a gift. Mine felt more like a warning siren that refused to stop. After my eyes met Daniel Mercer through the conference room glass, I spent the rest of the afternoon pretending everything was normal. I answered calls. Organized schedules. Responded to emails. Smiled when necessary. Yet every few minutes, I caught myself looking toward my locked desk drawer. The black folder felt heavier with every passing hour. By 6 o'clock, most employees had left Vaughn Tower. The executive floor grew quiet. City lights began replacing the fading sunlight outside the windows. I finally allowed myself to breathe. Then my office phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Sebastian Vaughn. My pulse immediately steadied. Somehow, it always did when he called. Olivia, he said. His voice was calm as usual. I will be arriving later than expected. Please move tomorrow's breakfast meeting to 8:30. Of course. There was a brief pause. Everything all right? The question caught me off guard. For a moment, I considered telling him about the file. About Daniel. About the strange feeling that had followed me all day. Instead, I forced a smile he could not even see. Everything is fine. Another pause. Longer this time. Good, he finally said before ending the call. I stared at the phone after the line disconnected. Why had he asked that? Sebastian rarely wasted words. If he asked a question, there was usually a reason. Around 7 o'clock, I gathered my belongings and prepared to leave. Before shutting down my computer, I decided to check one final document. A simple task. 5 minutes at most. That decision changed everything. When I opened the bottom desk drawer to retrieve the folder, my stomach tightened instantly. Something was wrong. The folder was not positioned the way I left it. Barely noticeable. A slight angle. Most people would never have seen the difference. I did. Slowly, I opened it. The documents remained inside. Every page appeared untouched. Yet someone had definitely opened the drawer. Someone had searched through my desk. The realization sent a chill down my spine. I quickly locked everything again and stood. Suddenly, the office felt much larger than before. Much emptier. The quiet no longer felt peaceful. It felt watchful. I left the building immediately. The cool evening air struck my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Traffic moved steadily below glowing skyscrapers. Normal people continued normal lives around me. Meanwhile, my mind replayed every strange moment from the day. Daniel's reaction. The mysterious file. Sebastian's unusual question. Then my phone vibrated. A new message appeared from an unknown number. No greeting. No explanation. Only a photograph. My breath caught. The image showed my office desk. specifically, the locked drawer containing the black folder. The photograph had clearly been taken from inside my office. Recent enough that my coffee cup still sat beside the computer monitor. Beneath the photograph was a single sentence. "You are looking in places where you do not belong." I stopped walking. The city noise seemed to disappear around me. Whoever sent the message knew about the file. Worse, they knew I had seen it. And for the first time, I realized the secret was no longer hidden inside a folder. It was following me. There is a moment when fear stops feeling like an emotion and starts feeling like a presence. That night, it sat beside me all the way home. I kept checking the rearview mirror. Every traffic light felt longer than usual. Every unfamiliar car seemed suspicious. By the time I reached my apartment building, I was exhausted. Yet sleep never came. The photograph remained open on my phone screen. My office. My desk. My locked drawer. Whoever sent it wanted me to know something important. They were not hiding. They were reminding me they could reach places I believed were secure. The next morning, Vaughan Tower looked exactly the same. Glass. Steel. Power. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything felt different. I stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor and immediately sensed it. Conversation stopped when I approached. People smiled a little too quickly. Normal interactions suddenly felt rehearsed. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it was not. I unlocked my office and froze. A bouquet of white roses sat in the center of my desk. Fresh. Perfectly arranged. No delivery information. No sender name. My pulse quickened. Slowly, I approached. Hidden among the flowers was a folded card. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. 5 words stared back at me. "Forget what you saw, Olivia." My name. Not Miss Carter. Not secretary. Olivia. Whoever sent the message knew me personally. The realization settled heavily in my chest. I looked around the office. Empty. Quiet. Yet I no longer felt alone. The entire day passed beneath a cloud of tension. I attended meetings. Prepared reports. Organized schedules. Outwardly, everything appeared normal. Inwardly, my thoughts never stopped racing. Around 4 o'clock, my office phone rang. Sebastian's private line. I answered immediately. "Come to my office." That was all he said before disconnecting. No explanation. No details. I walked toward the executive suite with the strange feeling that he already knew something was wrong. His office occupied the highest floor of the building. The city stretched endlessly beyond the massive windows behind him. When I entered, Sebastian stood near the glass, his hands in his pockets. He did not look at me immediately. "Close the door." I obeyed. The click of the lock sounded unusually loud. Several seconds passed before he turned around. His expression was unreadable. Calm. Controlled. Dangerous. Then his eyes landed on the bouquet I was still carrying. The room became very quiet. "Who sent those?" he asked. I swallowed. "I do not know." His gaze sharpened. "When did they arrive?" I told him everything. The photograph. The anonymous message. The flowers. The card. I expected anger. Instead, something far more concerning crossed his face. Concern. Genuine concern. Sebastian walked to his desk and pressed a button beneath the surface. Security footage appeared on a hidden monitor. He searched through recordings from that morning. Minute after minute passed. Then he stopped the video. My breath caught. Someone had entered my office before I arrived. The figure wore a maintenance uniform and a cap pulled low over their face. But one detail stood out immediately. The person used an executive access card. The kind only a handful of people possessed. Sebastian stared at the frozen image. Then he quietly said the one thing I never expected to hear. Olivia, someone inside this building wants you frightened. The difference between a warning and a threat is simple. A warning tells you danger exists. A threat tells you danger has chosen you. Sebastian's words followed me for the rest of the evening. Someone inside this building wants you frightened. I sat across from his desk while the security footage remained frozen on the monitor. The disguised figure stood motionless on the screen, their face hidden beneath the maintenance cap. Yet the executive access card changed everything. Only a small circle of trusted people possessed that level of clearance. Sebastian leaned back in his chair and stared at the image. The silence between us felt heavier than any conversation. Finally, he reached forward and turned off the monitor. You are not returning to your apartment tonight. I blinked. What? That was not a suggestion. His tone remained calm, but there was something underneath it. Concern. The kind he rarely showed. Sebastian, I can take care of myself. I know. He folded his hands together. That is exactly why I am worried. The answer caught me off guard. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he stood and walked toward the window overlooking the city. Thousands of lights glittered beneath the dark sky. From up here, everything looked peaceful. Controlled. Predictable. The reality felt very different. 3 years, he said quietly. You have worked for me for 3 years. I nodded. Have I ever asked you to trust me without a reason? The question surprised me. No. Then trust me now. Something in his voice made arguing feel pointless. Less than an hour later, I found myself inside a private guest suite located on one of the upper floors of Vaughn Tower. Elegant furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Tight security. The room looked more luxurious than most hotel penthouses. Yet comfort was not what I felt. I felt trapped between questions and half-truths. Around 10 o'clock, a soft knock interrupted my thoughts. One of Sebastian's security staff entered carrying a sealed envelope. Mr. Vaughn asked me to deliver this. Then he left. Alone again, I stared at the envelope. No name. No markings. Slowly, I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. My breath caught immediately. The image showed Sebastian standing beside a younger Daniel Mercer nearly 15 years earlier. Both men were smiling. Standing shoulder to shoulder. Looking more like brothers than business associates. Written on the back was a short note. Loyalty is easiest before money enters the room. I read the sentence twice. Then a third time. Why would Sebastian send me this? Unless he had not. My pulse quickened. I grabbed the room phone and called his office. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Then my own phone vibrated. Another unknown number. Another message. This time there was no photograph. Only a question. Do you know why Sebastian never talks about the night his empire almost collapsed? My heart began pounding. A second message appeared immediately afterward. Because the person who nearly destroyed him still sits at his table every day. I stared at the screen. Then my eyes slowly drifted toward the old photograph lying on the table beside me. And for the first time I began wondering if the secret file had been trying to expose something far bigger than financial betrayal. Secrets rarely arrive all at once. They arrive one piece at a time, forcing you to question everything you thought you understood. I barely slept that night. The photograph remained on the table beside me while the anonymous messages replayed endlessly in my mind. By sunrise, I knew one thing for certain. Someone wanted me to discover the truth. Someone else wanted me too frightened to continue looking. The question was which side I could trust. Early the next morning, a security escort accompanied me back to my office. Vaughn Tower appeared calm as always. Employees carried coffee cups. Elevators moved between floors. Meetings filled conference rooms. Yet beneath the normal routine, tension seemed to flow through the building like an invisible current. When I entered my office, Sebastian was already there. He stood beside the window studying the city below. "Did you sleep?" he asked without turning around. "Not much." A faint smile appeared. "Good. That means you are paying attention." The answer caught me off guard. He finally turned toward me. For the first time since all of this began, he looked tired. Not physically tired. Emotionally tired. Like a man carrying something heavy for far too long. Then he placed a small digital recorder on my desk. My eyes immediately moved to it. "What is that?" I asked. Sebastian stared at the recorder for several seconds before answering. "A mistake I should have corrected years ago." The room fell silent. Slowly, he sat across from me. "Olivia, there is something you need to understand. The file you found was real. Every transaction. Every meeting. Every name." My pulse quickened. "Including Daniel Mercer?" Sebastian nodded once. The answer felt like a stone dropping through my chest. "Then why is he still here?" Sebastian looked toward the closed office door. "Because proving suspicion and proving betrayal are two different things." I understood immediately. Evidence existed. Certainty did not. At least not yet. He pushed the recorder slightly closer. "For years I believed someone inside my organization was feeding information to competitors. Deals collapsed. Opportunities disappeared. Private conversations somehow became public knowledge." His expression darkened. "Every trail eventually disappeared." I stared at the recorder. "And this changes that?" "Maybe." He leaned forward. "The recording was obtained 8 years ago. I locked it away because I was not ready to hear what it might reveal." The honesty surprised me. Sebastian Vaughn was not a man known for hesitation. Yet something about this recording frightened even him. My hand slowly reached toward the device. Before I touched it, a sharp knock interrupted us. Both of us looked toward the door. One of Sebastian's security officers entered carrying a tablet. His expression was unusually serious. "Sir, you need to see this." Sebastian accepted the device. Seconds later, every trace of calm disappeared from his face. My stomach tightened immediately. "What happened?" He turned the screen toward me. The image showed security footage from a restricted archive room located 3 floors below us. A man had entered shortly before sunrise. The face was hidden. The clothing was ordinary. Yet one detail stood out immediately. The individual was carrying a storage box identical to those used for confidential company records. Beneath the image appeared a short report. Several archived files were missing, including documents connected to the same investigation hidden inside the black folder. Sebastian looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us needed to say it aloud. Someone was cleaning up evidence. And whoever they were, they had started moving faster. People often imagine betrayal as a single moment. One decision. One lie. One act. The truth is far more unsettling. Betrayal usually grows slowly, hidden beneath years of trust. After the discovery in the archive room, the atmosphere inside Vaughn Tower changed completely. Security increased throughout the building. Access permissions were reviewed. Entire departments suddenly found themselves answering questions nobody expected. Yet despite all the precautions, the person behind everything remained invisible. That was the most frightening part. Whoever they were, they understood the system almost as well as Sebastian did. By late afternoon, I returned to his office. The digital recorder still rested on the desk between us. Neither of us had touched it. Sebastian stood near the window again, staring at the city below. "The missing files were not random," he said quietly. "Every one of them connected to the same investigation. My eyes drifted toward the recorder. And this recording is connected too? He nodded. More than anything else. Silence settled between us. Finally, I reached forward and picked up the device. It felt surprisingly ordinary. Small. Lightweight. Yet somehow it seemed capable of changing everything. What happens if we listen to it? I asked. Sebastian looked directly at me. We learn whether I have been wrong for 8 years. The answer surprised me. And if you have not been wrong? His expression darkened slightly. Then someone I trusted has been lying to me for a very long time. The honesty in his voice made my chest tighten. For years, I had watched Sebastian make difficult decisions without hesitation. Yet now I saw something different. Not fear. Disappointment. As though part of him already knew what the recording might reveal. Before either of us could press play, the office door opened. Daniel Mercer entered carrying a tablet and several reports. My pulse immediately quickened. He smiled politely when he saw me. I hope I am not interrupting. Sebastian's face became unreadable. What is it? Daniel placed the documents on the desk. The board requested updated projections before tomorrow's meeting. His voice sounded completely normal. Confident. Professional. Exactly as it always had. If I had never seen the file, I would have suspected nothing. Yet now every word felt different. Every gesture seemed rehearsed. Daniel glanced briefly toward the recorder in my hand. The moment lasted less than a second. But I noticed. So did Sebastian. Then Daniel smiled again. Something important? Sebastian answered immediately. Nothing you need to worry about. For the first time since I had known them, a strange tension filled the space between the two men. Invisible but unmistakable. Daniel eventually left. The moment the door closed, Sebastian walked directly to the security monitor. He replayed footage from the previous hour. My eyes widened. Daniel had entered the executive floor 3 separate times that afternoon. Yet according to his calendar, he only needed to visit once. That seems unusual, I said. Sebastian nodded slowly. Very unusual. Then he opened a secure drawer and removed an old leather notebook. The pages inside were filled with dates, observations, and names. Years of notes. Years of suspicion. Years of unanswered questions. One page immediately caught my attention. Daniel's name appeared repeatedly beside another name I did not recognize. A woman named Claire Hastings. Who is she? I asked. Sebastian stared at the notebook. The silence lasted several seconds. When he finally answered, his voice became unusually quiet. The person who disappeared the same week I started investigating the leak. My heartbeat stopped. Then he turned the page. Tucked inside was an old photograph. The moment I saw the image, my stomach dropped. Because standing beside Claire Hastings was someone I recognized immediately. Someone currently working inside Vaughan Tower. Someone nobody had ever suspected. Sometimes the most dangerous discovery is not finding a new secret. It is realizing an old secret has been standing beside you the entire time. I could not take my eyes off the photograph. The image was nearly a decade old. Claire Hastings stood smiling beside several employees during what appeared to be a company event. Yet she was not the person who shocked me. The person standing next to her did. My breath caught instantly. That is impossible. Sebastian remained silent. His expression told me he had already spent years wrestling with the same conclusion. The person beside Claire was Evelyn Brooks. Head of Human Resources. One of the most respected executives in Vaughan Tower. The woman who remembered every employee's birthday. The woman who organized charity events. The woman everyone trusted. Including me. There has to be an explanation, I said. Sebastian slowly closed the notebook. I spent years looking for one. The answer landed heavily between us. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Then he finally picked up the recorder resting on the desk. "We are done waiting." My pulse immediately quickened. The moment had arrived. 8 years of suspicion. 8 years of unanswered questions. 8 years trapped inside a device small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. Sebastian pressed play. Static filled the office. Then voices emerged. The recording quality was poor, but the conversation remained understandable. A man spoke first. Calm. Professional. Another voice answered. Female. Familiar. Very familiar. My stomach tightened. It was Claire Hastings. There was no doubt. The discussion sounded ordinary at first. References to schedules. Meetings. Financial reports. Then the tone shifted. Claire mentioned confidential information that should never have left Sebastian's inner circle. My heart began racing. The second voice responded immediately. The speaker remained unnamed, but every sentence revealed knowledge that only a trusted insider could possess. The conversation continued for several minutes. Then one sentence changed everything. Sebastian still believes Daniel is the problem. The room went completely silent. Even the recording seemed louder afterward. I looked at Sebastian. His jaw tightened. Years of suspicion suddenly seemed far less certain. The voice on the recording continued. As long as he watches Daniel, nobody will ever notice us. My breath stopped. Us. Not him. Not her. Us. There were multiple people involved. The realization changed everything. Daniel Mercer might not be the mastermind. He might not even be the traitor Sebastian believed he was. The recording ended abruptly. Silence returned to the office. Neither of us spoke immediately. We were both processing the same terrifying possibility. 8 years of investigation might have been pointing in the wrong direction. Then my phone vibrated. The sudden sound nearly made me jump. Another unknown number. Another message. I opened it carefully. This time there was no threat. No warning. No photograph. Only an address. Followed by a single sentence. If you want the truth about Claire Hastings, come alone. My pulse accelerated. Sebastian immediately noticed my expression. What is it? I showed him the message. His eyes narrowed instantly. Absolutely not. The answer came so quickly that it almost sounded personal. Concern flashed across his face again. Stronger this time. Yet before either of us could continue, another message arrived. This one contained an attachment. A short audio file. My hands trembled as I pressed play. The recording lasted only 7 seconds. 7 seconds that changed everything once again. Because the voice speaking in that file belonged to Claire Hastings. And the first words she said were, "If anything happens to me, tell Sebastian that Daniel was never the one he should have feared." The truth does not always arrive like a thunderstorm. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper that quietly destroys everything you believed. The 7-second recording echoed in my mind long after it ended. Claire Hastings sounded calm. Certain. Not frightened. Not confused. She had known exactly what she was saying. Daniel was never the one he should have feared. I looked at Sebastian. For the first time since I had known him, he seemed genuinely shaken. Not because someone had betrayed him. Because he might have spent 8 years suspecting the wrong person. The room remained silent for several seconds. Then Sebastian stood abruptly. "We are going to that address." I stared at him. "A minute ago you said absolutely not." A minute ago I did not have Claire's voice telling me my entire investigation may have been built on a false assumption. His expression hardened. "But we are not going alone." Less than an hour later, a small security team escorted us across the city. The address led to an aging office building hidden between newer developments near the waterfront. From the outside, it looked forgotten. Empty windows. Faded brick. A place nobody would notice. Which was exactly why someone had chosen it. We entered cautiously. Dust covered the floors. Most of the building appeared abandoned. Then one of the security officers discovered a locked storage room on the second floor. The lock had been replaced recently. Sebastian exchanged a glance with me before opening the door. Inside sat a single metal filing cabinet. Nothing else. My pulse accelerated. After everything we had uncovered, the simplicity felt almost unsettling. Sebastian opened the cabinet. The top drawer contained dozens of folders. Each one carefully labeled. Dates. Financial reports. Internal communications. Employee records. The deeper we searched, the more disturbing the pattern became. Claire Hastings had been collecting information for years. Not against Sebastian. For him. Every document pointed toward the same conclusion. She had been conducting her own investigation. Quietly. Secretly. Patiently. Then I found something hidden inside the final drawer. A sealed envelope with Sebastian's name written across the front. His hands tightened slightly as he opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Claire's letter. The room grew completely silent as Sebastian began reading. I watched his expression change line by line. Confusion. Surprise. Regret. Then something deeper. Sadness. When he finally finished, he handed the letter to me. My eyes moved quickly across the page. Claire explained everything. Years earlier, she had discovered that information was being leaked from inside the organization. At first she suspected Daniel. Almost everyone did. But the evidence never fully fit. So she continued searching. What she eventually found terrified her. The leaks originated from someone nobody would ever suspect because their role placed them beneath everyone's attention. Someone trusted precisely because nobody viewed them as a threat. My heartbeat accelerated as I reached the final paragraph. There, Claire revealed the name she had spent years protecting. I looked up from the letter in disbelief. The person responsible was neither Daniel Mercer nor Evelyn Brooks. It was someone else entirely. Someone who had appeared repeatedly throughout the investigation without attracting suspicion. Someone currently working inside Vaughn Tower. Then a phone rang. Not mine. Not Sebastian's. One of the security officers slowly pulled a phone from inside the cabinet. The screen was already lit. An incoming video call. No caller identification. Sebastian answered. The image appeared instantly. My breath caught. Because sitting on the screen was the very person named in Claire's letter. And they smiled as if they had been expecting us all along. The most dangerous people are not the ones who hide in the shadows. They are the ones who learn how to stand in plain sight. The face on the video call smiled calmly from the phone screen. For a moment, nobody in the room spoke. The silence felt unreal. After weeks of warnings, missing files, anonymous messages, secret recordings, and years of unanswered questions, the truth was finally sitting directly in front of us. Sebastian stared at the screen without blinking. His expression remained controlled, but I could see the disappointment behind his eyes. Not anger. Not shock. Disappointment. The kind that comes when trust finally breaks. You found Claire's letter, the caller said calmly. I expected you would. Sebastian's voice remained steady. Why? The smile faded slightly. Because she was smarter than all of us. The answer hung in the air. The caller glanced toward me through the screen. And your secretary was smarter than you realized. My pulse quickened. For months I had believed I was simply caught in someone else's story. Now I understood something different. I had become part of the reason the truth survived. The caller continued speaking. Years earlier, confidential information had become a valuable currency. Small pieces of internal knowledge were quietly exchanged, traded, and sold. What began as harmless shortcuts eventually became a network of deception. Claire discovered it first. Instead of exposing everyone immediately, she began documenting everything. She gathered records, recorded conversations, preserved evidence. She knew the truth would only matter if it could be proven. Unfortunately, she also realized that exposing the network without complete proof would destroy innocent people along with the guilty. So she waited. She investigated. She protected the evidence. Sebastian listened without interrupting. Every answer seemed to fill another gap in a puzzle that had taken nearly a decade to solve. Then the caller revealed the final piece. Daniel Mercer had never betrayed Sebastian. In fact, Daniel had unknowingly become the perfect distraction. Every suspicious clue pointed toward him. Every false trail ended at his door. While everyone watched Daniel, the real network remained invisible. Suddenly years of confusion made sense. The missing evidence. The contradictory records. The anonymous warnings. Someone had been steering suspicion in the wrong direction from the beginning. The caller looked directly into the camera. Claire believed loyalty still existed inside this company. That is why she trusted her final evidence to people she believed would eventually do the right thing. My eyes moved toward Sebastian. For a brief moment, neither of us looked away. After everything that had happened, one truth remained undeniable. Trust had survived. Not because it was easy. Because it was tested. The video call ended moments later. No dramatic confrontation. No final threat. Just silence. The investigation that had haunted Sebastian for years was finally over. Days later, Von Tower felt different. Lighter. Honest. Several executives quietly resigned. Internal reforms began. Long-hidden records were corrected. For the first time in years, nobody seemed afraid of the truth. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the skyline, I stood inside Sebastian's office watching the city lights awaken below. Was it worth it? I asked. Sebastian looked out across the horizon. Finding the truth? I nodded. He thought about the question for several seconds. Then a faint smile appeared. The truth always has a price. He glanced toward me. The important part is deciding what is worth paying for. Outside, the city continued moving beneath the evening sky. Inside, the secrets were finally gone. And for the first time since I opened that black folder, the future no longer felt like something waiting to be feared.